Using your platform has become to literally using the platform when you are playing, like the actual court or the field that you are on about to perform. It's something that is very important to the NWSL as well.
Hi everyone, I'm Vanessa Perdomo. This is Deep Coverage presented by QuickTake and The Athletic.
Women's soccer returned to play in the U.S. amid coronavirus worries and during a key time in America where social justice activism is intersecting with sports in unprecedented ways.
Almost every single major sports league in the U.S. decided to sit out in protest of the police shooting of Jacob Blake. Do you feel like if you guys were playing at that time that you guys would have sat out as well?
Yes, I do. I can't speak for everyone, but I can speak for a small minority of friends who I think would have done the exact same thing. I think there are even people who were like, let's not do the fall series. And we had to be like, think about timing, think about like, it's like, don't just do it to do it. There were conversations that were had.
So Meg, you're really the expert here. So I really want to talk to you. Let's talk fall series. Can you break it down for me? What's going on?
So 18 games, there are 9 teams in this league, 3 teams in 3 regional pods. The best part about this, I think, from an NWSL point of view, is that they have a whole bunch of games on big CBS, 4 games every Saturday in September, then 3 more on national television on CBS Sports Network. So that's really the setup I think that we need here.
And now it's just a really exciting time to be able to come back and actually playing games. I know even on our team, like we have people with new moves and we're like, oh, like that looks good. Like you can do it in the game. So I think it's a really exciting time for players.
Now in the next coming years, we're seeing a couple more teams being added to the league. Meg, can you talk to that and explain to us a little bit about the expansion and these new teams that are supposed to be coming in?
Sure. So, Louisville is definitely on the way for 2021. They have hired their new head coach. We know in theory we're getting an expansion draft. Angel City came into the league during the middle of Challenge Cup. In their announcement, new Los Angeles expansion team to much fanfare. A very star-studded ownership group. Natalie Portman really at the heart of that ownership group, which is a very new and unique thing that we can now say in the NWSL world. There's also potential that we're going to get a second California team either in 2021 or 22 in Sacramento, which is not fully across the line or announced yet, but we've reported at The Athletic that they are in the mix for an expansion team. But there's also just more interest than ever. But obviously this is going to change the look and feel of the league. We're at 9 teams. At one point we were at 10, right? The league contracted. Midge can also speak to the Boston Breakers experience, as can I, as a team that I used to cover. But really this is a thing that the league has needed, is to get to a stronger position, to be in more markets, to have that, especially a footprint in California has been really a thing for women's soccer, especially professionally. Los Angeles is a huge market and one that can do extremely well, and to have a dedicated ownership group like the Angel City ownership group, like it's really some very solid news for the NWSL as of right now.
Absolutely. And Midge, can you talk to that a little bit? Like, what does it feel like as a player to see these new teams you run, to see people like Natalie Portman and things like that give in investment to this league to help it grow?
No, it's a super exciting thing. And I think it makes everyone a lot more comfortable. I think that's something that people kind of don't acknowledge, because, the stability of the league is something that has been in question over recent years. So I think seeing new teams come in, seeing more investment come in, Natalie Portman is phenomenal, not only in her career, but like as a person. Like I think girls in general in our league, they love what she stands for. So it's a very cool thing to see her coming in through an ownership role.
I do want to shift gears a little bit and talk about social justice.
Following NBA action, right? MLS games also got shut down that night. Players did not want to play. Real Salt Lake were among the teams that did not play that night. Zoe Hansen, who is the owner of Real Salt Lake, also Utah Royals, also a USL team, went on local radio the next day and said essentially he felt like he had been stabbed in the back by his own players for refusing to play. That didn't go over well. Then at The Athletic, we had additional reporting just kind of with this long history of racist statements and like microaggressions, and the culture at this organization seems extremely bad. From there, both MLS and NWSL said that they would launch investigations. The other thing that I think was extremely influential into this was Utah Royals rookie Zara King making a public statement on her social media to say that it was, kind of extremely disappointing that you want an owner that's going to have your back as like a full human, right? Black players of the NWSL released a statement. By Sunday, Deloy Hansen said that he intended to sell basically the entire organization. But the good news is that does not actually, at least on the NWSL side, stop the investigation from still happening. But obviously, this speaks to not just this kind of culture that has taken root in Utah, but obviously it is stemming from social justice issues. And I think, overall, the NWSL were first back. I think some of the actions that the league took were good first steps, but I think from an outside point of view, and I'm sure Midge can speak to this more from the inside, but I think from an outside point of view, we are looking for the NWSL front office. I mean, like the actual league structure itself, the teams, the Players Association to truly step up in a way, a little bit more than what has happened so far to ensure that players feel safe, that fans feel safe, right? As they go into stadiums, obviously fans are not just going into stadiums right at the moment, but also online spaces, right? Like this is a community project. Earlier this summer, Midge was actually a part of this as well. I did a roundtable with U.S. national team players, and multiple Black players in this league have had incidents in Utah where they have encountered, comments from people in the stands that were racist. We had an incident with Jessica McDonald, her son not being allowed on the field because of an employee within the stadium. And these things are important. How are we proactive in terms of expecting something from the league itself to protect players, to protect fans, to protect staff? And I think that's kind of where the next piece is. And hopefully Utah is going to prove to be kind of this unfortunate test case that the league can learn from, and this investigation can happen. And then we can see some actual concrete steps to ensure that NWSL culture as a whole is healthy.
Midge, do you want to touch on that as well? I know you guys put out a statement, Black players in the NWSL put out a statement. Do you want to touch on that?
Yeah, the statement was a great thing because we were able to have every Black NWSL player look at that statement and approve that statement and say, yeah, like we're with that. And I think that's really important, that anything that's put out is something that's a collective and a united front. And I think when Z was speaking, King, we saw her words and we were like, well, this is fantastic. I was like, you go, girl. Like, go ahead. Like, speak up. I retweeted it. And I think she has built a wonderful reputation for herself. She's a very intelligent young woman. And we were like, we need to make sure that it is understood that she is not alone in her feelings, and she is fully supported in her feelings and her take on it. And we wanted to make sure, as like a collective within the league, that if she was going to take any repercussions or backlash for speaking out, that it wasn't just her, like we were all with her. And so I think that was a really wonderful thing that we were able to do. And it was a really cool and honestly beautiful thing to see everybody come together and be so passionate and supportive in this position.
And there have been talks about you guys wanting to create a Black players coalition within that NWSL. I know that you've talked about wanting to do that. Can you maybe discuss that? Was this kind of an intro to that, or is that in the works still?
Yeah, it was a little taste. Like it's definitely in the works. We've been working behind the scenes. Like we have structure, we have bylaws, we have mission statements and everything put together. But we we've decided that, I personally don't like to give anything out half-baked. And I think that's the same sentiment of everyone else. So when we come out officially and like make our first step into the world, we want to have everything, all bases covered. So this was a product of us being mobilized enough to speak up and to have our own voice, which I think was really important. We are Black players in the NWSL. We are a coalition, and we are forming, and it's I'm really proud to be a part of it, and I'm proud of all the players who have been putting so much work. When we present ourselves to the world, it's going to be a really powerful and impactful thing, not just for us as players, but for other young women and young men that are not just Black, but of all races. Crystal Dunn talks about this idea of you have to work twice as hard or you have to be twice as good to get some of the same recognition. And I've felt that way.
Women's soccer is overwhelmingly white, but that is also how the sport is designed in this country. I mean, Midge, I remember at your draft class, I think the top 10 picks, like 50% were women of color, right? Something along those lines. And it was kind of like, oh, the shift is happening, right? And we're still in the same general spot we were in 2017. Like, I think people keep reaching for that story, which is a sign of hope, right? But nothing has still fundamentally really changed over the past few seasons.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm on Sky Blue right now, and this is, I think, the most Black people I've ever played with in my entire life.
Well, thank you guys so much for discussing this with me and really breaking down what's going on. Midge, good luck in the fall series.
Thank you.
And so much for your time, guys.
Thank you.